Alrighty, welcome to the stream, everyone. I'm your host. Okay. Um, we are streaming, just looking to have some combos about the existence of God. Um, so if you think that a God exists, um, and you have evidence, to support your beliefs, feel free to come on up. I just ask that you be 18 or older for TikTok TOS purposes. But if you meet those requirements, then you can come on up. But yeah. Sorry, hold up. I didn't mean to. Wait, hold up. Give me a second. Sorry. I apologize, guys. Give me 1 second. Um, to do with um. Right. I don't know. Whoa. That was that. Give me a second, guys. I'm not able to be at my phone right now. I'm in my closet. Where did I put? Okay, whatever. I'll look for it later. Okay. Um, but yeah, make sure you guys are liking up the stream so more people can see the live. Um, and if I'm gonna sneeze, hold up. And if you have a strong argument or evidence to think that a God exists, come on up. Guest requests are open. You just gotta be 18 or older. That's the only precondition. Oh, also that you believe in an immaterial mind that created the universe with the omni properties. If you think that that God exists and you have evidence for it, feel free to come on up. Um, but yeah, as for right now, just kind of chilling. As for right now, just kind of chilling. It might be kind of slow, but we'll get to someone eventually. Aisha, why don't you believe in God? Uh, Aisha, why don't you believe in God? I don't believe in God just because of the lack of evidence in a God. Um, I'm not convinced that the evidence that we have as of now is enough to safely conclude that a God exists. And I also think that some gods are just false by definition because their definitions entail some form of contradiction, which obviously can't exist. So there's a bit more nuance to that. Uh, do, 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 uh, who created you if God is not real? My parents did. I get that question like so many times. It's I don't know, maybe I should make like a video just kind of honestly, I think I should would you guys like okay. Um if I made like videos like explaining my position, do you guys think that people would like actually like watch them before they come to the live? Do you think that I would probably still have to explain it to them, even though I made a video kind of categorizing my position? Or maybe if I put it in the bio, I don't know. Because it gets kind of tiring to like say the same stuff over and over and over and over again. But I guess that's kind of just this how this kind of system works because people tune in at different times. Not everyone is locked in, so they might not see it all. But um, once again, make sure if you're in the stream that you're liking it up so more people can see the stream. I hope I have some moderators on. I don't know if I do. Let me check. Probably not. It's late. Most of my moderators are only up during the day. I guess I'm on my own tonight. That sucks. All right. Once again, make sure if you're in that guest request box that you're 18 or older. If you're not 18 or older, I'm just gonna drop you. Um, Pretty simple stuff, I feel like. But yeah. Okay. This guy's loading. Dr. Pepper, you're loading in, but like I see your thing, but it's not actually loaded in yet. So I don't know. I'm gonna give you a couple more seconds, and then if you don't, then I'll just drop you. You can come back up, but for some reason it's just okay. I'll drop it. I'll drop them because they're not coming up. Once again, if you're not 18 or older, don't request to join. Oh, they're gone. Okay, we'll get to this guy
Hey
here.
boy, you better get right with golf or I come here to beat your ass, nigga, you fucking pussy ass nigga. I'll bust all over your eyes too, you fucking faggot ass bitch. You probably a fucking gay ass faggot and you
Okay. Well, most loving Christian, by the way. Most loving Christian. He had, mind you, right? He's the one. He's on the side of Christianity, but it's okay. I think it's hilarious that like that Christians will call atheists or non-believers immoral, but then turn around and do stuff like that. Like, come on, dude. Like, let's be so serious, but it's okay. Obviously, I understand that that's not a good representation of Christianity, but just to make a point. Okay, I don't know if it's just me, but like the guests aren't actually coming up. It's weird. Melly, are you here? Going once, going twice. Okay. Well, we'll just go down the list until we get someone. I really hope my TikTok's not bugged. I feel like it is because I'm not getting anyone to actually come up. Oh, there we go. Hey, how's it going? Hello? Okay. My feed is senses are going off. Um, Shit, my back. Hey, how's it going?
I'm gonna be fucking your mom in bed, you piece of shit. Fuck you.
Okay. Wait, can I do it from my computer, I wonder? Probably not, huh? Like, because this would be. What account am I on? Talking to myself, guys. I apologize. Don't worry about that. All right. Well, we're just gonna keep going down the list. Okay, Melly. Hopefully, it. I don't know if it was your connection or if it was mine, but like, yeah, I'm letting you up now, but it's. Okay, there we go. Hey, Melly, how's it going?
Hello. I'm not like the
Oh,
other people that start cussing you out.
okay, you're not 18 or older, not even close. Um, Make sure if you're in that guest request that you're 18 or older. It's pretty simple stuff. Not asking for a lot here. Just
Yo, yo,
hey
can you
Noah,
hear me,
how's it
bro?
going?
Sometimes when I join lives, it don't work. Yo, all right,
Yeah, I can hear you.
all right. So I just want to know what makes you like. It says God isn't real. Like, what makes you know that? Why do you think? What makes you so sure? Instead of saying that you don't know, what makes you so sure that He's not? That's my question.
Because I God entails some type of contradiction, and I don't think that contradictions can exist. So because of that,
Well, is
in
it
the
not
same way that I would say
contradiction? Sorry to interrupt, but
what?
look, would you not say that it's also a logical contradiction that nothing came from something? Because in your mind and in my mind, that doesn't make sense either. So if it's impossible for contradiction to happen, it's impossible for you to be alive. So
Okay, well, hold
that's
on.
my position.
We made so many jumps and assumptions there. So, um, I don't hold to a quote unquote nothing coming from something. And that's just not my
Well, in the
position,
beginning, you
right?
do, or else
So,
there was a creator because nothing
what?
is,
What are you
or you
talking
believe
about?
something made
When did,
itself. That's what you believe.
no.
Then what do you believe? What happened?
So before we get to that, can we establish that like you can't just like assign beliefs? Like the way you inquire about someone's belief is by asking them what they believe, not by assuming.
Okay, what about
So,
the like what do you think is contradict like what about the Bible like contradicts itself, would you say?
I mean, it's not even just the Bible, it's just God himself. Like his
Okay,
property
so you,
set entails contradictions.
what does? What are you saying?
Like the all powerful, all knowing, all good, like all of that stuff. leads to
Okay, I
some
get where
form
you're
of
coming from.
contradiction.
What you're saying is you're saying why does he allow the suffering in the world? That's basically what I
No,
think it
not.
is.
I
I
mean,
think you're
I,
angry with God.
well,
I don't think you know for sure that it's not real.
so
I
this
think
is
you want his
again okay.
attention
Okay,
and he's not giving it
before
to
you get
you.
to
That's
this,
what I
right?
think.
We're already having problems again right now. You're right back to assuming or making assumptions about my position or my beliefs, right? So the way you would ask me how I feel about God is by saying, "Hey,
Nah,
Kay,
I'm a
how do you
grown
feel
ass
about
man. I'm gonna
God?"
ask you how I want to ask you, but
You're a grown
you know,
ass man that doesn't want to ask questions
nah. I just
and
said I'm gonna ask you
and
how
actually
I
have
choose to word it.
conversation.
Nah.
A
I'm
grown
being
ass
respectful.
man
I'm not gonna
would
cuss
ask
you out. Nothing crazy, but
right, but like if you're gonna keep assuming my position, right, then that's
I'm
not
all right.
respectful.
So you said God contra. So basically, what I assume you're kind of hinting at is that like that if God's all good and all knowing and all powerful in the world itself, that wouldn't seem true because all the bad shit that happens. That's basically what you think. Would you like to know what I
That's
would
a
like my
very
answer to that would be?
well. So let's be a bit more specific here, right? I'm not just running the general problem of evil.
Okay.
I run gratuitous suffering, right? So why does malaria exist in your worldview?
What is that? I don't know what that
Why
is, to
does
be honest.
It's a disease that comes from mosquitoes. It's
Okay.
like a mutation thing. So yeah,
But
why
my
does that
answer,
exist in your worldview?
my answer, and this is, bro, Adam and Eve, when they, what what the Bible says is it was not supposed to be this way. Before Adam and Eve, before she bit the apple and got deceived by the devil, it was not supposed to happen. But
Is that your
after she
answer?
did that, then humanity had to pay for it. One
Okay.
man sinned, the rest of humanity pays for it. But look, we all were uh led into sin by Adam, but we also could all be saved by Jesus. So it's
So
fair,
okay.
if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
so to be clear, your accounting for malaria is because of the fall. Is that your answer?
Yep. Yeah. I think
Okay.
that
So
everything bad is because of the
so
fall. Sin, death. I think
right.
all of that. The wages of
So
sin
how
is
do you
death, as the
account?
Bible says.
Right. Right. So how do you account for a fossilized mosquito that's found to have malaria? How would you account for that?
I don't know if like the Bible says those are creatures of the earth. Animals, like, I know
Okay.
it sucks
So
because I love my dog and shit, but
so how are you accounting for a fossilized mosquito that had malaria, right?
you're
Billions
talking
of
about a
years
mosquito
ago.
with a disease, or someone got a mosquito or a disease from a mosquito.
We're talking about malaria, which is a disease from mosquitoes. So I'm asking you, how can you
You're talking
account
about a
if
human
your
being got
answer
it or a literal mosquito that had it.
we're literally just talking about malaria as a disease. So to be clear, right? You said that evil, suffering, and disease is all a result of the fall.
Yeah.
But obviously, this can't be true, or this at least contradicts science, because from what we know, the point with this fossilized mosquito
Science
that I'm
doesn't know
bringing to
shit,
you.
bro. That's what you just don't haven't figured out yet, bro. They don't know nothing.
Wait. To be clear, science doesn't know shit. Is that what you said?
No, bro. They still haven't figured out what the fuck happened. They don't know anything.
Right. So
They can't. They don't
are you
know
saying that you
nothing.
reject science?
Not all of it, but like not all
So
scientists. No.
right.
Because about half of scientists are believe in God. So nah,
So if they
depends.
didn't if they didn't believe in God, would you think science is still true?
Yeah, because they're wrong
So
in my view.
all right. So obviously there's a lot of problems here, right? So again,
No
right?
matter what you think, though.
Do you think that dinosaurs existed?
They might have. I wasn't alive. I
They
can't tell you,
might
but
have. So you don't even know if
that's millions
dinosaurs
of years ago.
existed.
That's not 2,000 years ago with
So
fucking. Nah, yeah,
well,
I see what you're trying to do though.
how
Nah.
would you account
Bro, I'm pretty fucking positive they existed. We got fucking.
okay,
If I had to bet my life on it, I would be pretty confident to say they existed. Yeah,
yeah,
pretty
okay. So if you
confident.
think dinosaurs existed,
Do
right?
you think Alexander the
Don't
Great
you
lived?
think don't what?
Do you think Alexander the Great lived, who was 300 years before, or like you don't know at all?
I would
Or do you
probably I
think
mean
that the historical evidence
I
isn't
think it's
enough
likely
to?
it's true, but the
Okay, then
historical
why do you think
evidence.
it's not likely that Jesus is true? That's even
Okay, well
closer to
we're
now.
pivoting. No, we're pivoting, right? Let's stay
No,
on the
we're
problem.
not. That's
We
a.
are. We're talking
Okay,
about
whatever, bro. Go
Jesus
ahead,
when we were talking about malaria. So to be clear,
bro.
right?
What the?
We're not getting
Talking
off
about
of this
bro.
point.
Okay,
We're
bro.
staying linear in this dialectic, right? And yeah, you can laugh. I mean,
Bro,
I
I'm
don't
not
know how
trying to
that
be
helps
rude.
you,
I
but
just don't know why we're talking about cockroach diseases, bro. But
I think it's just a tracking failure on your pen, which is fine, right? I can walk you through it, right? So what
All
you're
right, what are you
saying,
saying?
what your initial claim was, right, was that disease existed because of the fall. But I just gave you an example of a disease that existed prior to humans, right? And so if that's the case, that's highly
You don't
unexpected in
know
your
what
worldview.
existed
We
prior to
do.
humans,
We
bro.
literally, again, the
According to the
fossilized
Bible,
mosquito.
there literally was the earth wasn't even the first thing where humans was, bro. You don't even know what you're talking about
Okay,
at all.
I don't think you do, right? So if I'm telling you we have a fossilized mosquito, right? First of all, the process of fossilization, do you know how that works? Probably not,
Yes,
right?
a long time, bro.
Right, okay, so you at least understand that it takes a long time for something to become a fossil,
Bro,
right?
so you're saying just
So
because
if it's
mosquitoes
the
existed a
case,
long ass time ago, that makes God fake, right, bro? You got
yeah,
it.
again, you're just not tracking, and like I don't think like fake
I
laughter is
know
gonna
that's
help you.
what you said, bro.
I
You
think
you're
what's
not
gonna
you haven't proved
No, no,
shit. You're
no.
just like
Again,
coming, bro.
you're just not tracking, right? I think everyone else in the comments could actually understand the argument that I'm making here, but for some reason, I don't know if it's just because you want to be dishonest or maybe it's something else, but it's a pretty simple
Bro, if
argument
I
that I'm
didn't
laying
believe in
out.
it, bro, if I didn't actually think it was real, I'm not a fairy tale player, bro. I wouldn't fucking sit here and if I didn't
We're
fucking believe
not
in it, I
we're not
wouldn't
even
be.
talking about that, right? All we're talking Listen, let's just stay linear in the discussion, right? Let's not say anything about anything else besides the thing that we're talking about, right? So the objection that I'm raising to you is
So
that
what are you? Are you a
diseases,
Satanist or what? I see some weird
brother,
devil shit
why
in your
why are
name.
you pivoting? Just let me finish my
Or my fault.
statement. Right. So to be clear, right? It's highly unexpected, right? Because you even said it yourself that disease existed before the fall. But obviously, right, with diseases like malaria and even cancer,
Not for
right,
humans though.
all of
Like
these things that has no relevance. All of
yes,
these
it
things
does because
existed,
those are just
brother.
creatures of the world.
Your
This is a
claim, no,
dead
no, no.
world. You're not
Listen, listen,
understanding what I'm
listen.
trying to say. What I'm
Your
trying to say
claim
is
was
this
that,
world is the devil's world. This is literally an evil ass world, and we're put here because
brother,
we're sinners. That's
that
the only
has no
reason we're on Earth. Is
relevance.
what I'm trying to
Again,
explain
this
to
is a
you.
tracking failure. You're not
The Earth is
understanding the
no
point
good.
here.
It's gonna be
The
fucked up
point,
forever and
the
ever, and it's
point,
probably been fucked up for a
listen,
long,
okay.
long time. That's what it is.
The point here, right? It's gonna be that diseases
The
existed
Bible admits that though, so I don't get what you're
millions of
saying.
years before the fall happened. So I'm asking you, how
Yeah,
can
and
you
that
account for
happened to an
that
animal.
in
The
your
animals
worldview?
aren't created in the image of God. There's no salvation for a
Wait,
fucking
wait,
cockroach.
but was it or was it not your claim that the reason why diseases existed in the world is
For
because of the
humanity, that's
fall?
why
No,
humans
no,
go
no, no.
through.
Okay. Now you're adding the humanity part. That's not what you said
No,
initially.
I'm not adding anything. The Bible
You
says
are
that
you are most
no, listen,
definitely adding to
I'm just
that
telling you
because
what
you
the Bible says. The
see the
Bible, no,
problem
listen,
that
no,
arises
no,
from
I'm
it.
talking real quick. Just
And it's
listen.
okay, right? It's okay
Nah,
to
listen
make a
real quick though.
mistake, but
Listen, no, you're bro.
don't
It's the demon
dishonest
in
and
you
say, "Oh
fucking
no,
trying to
I
overtalk
didn't
me so
add
you
to
don't
it."
fucking learn
You
shit.
definitely added
Look,
to it.
listen. The Bible says itself that humans are the ones created in the image of God. All right, the cockroach ain't
Are we
created, and my phone's
talking
at one
about
percent. I better
humans?
find a charger.
And
Hold
I'm
up.
sorry, again, this is just a tracking failure on your end, right? We're not saying anything about animals or humans. All we're talking
Yes, you
about
did. You said the
is
cockroach disease.
I didn't even say cockroaches. You're just okay. Holy fucking shit.
Well, humans weren't dying. According to
What
my
is
belief, humans
malaria?
were
No,
not
no, no,
dying
no.
from that shit before
What is
Adam and Eve.
malaria?
And if they were,
Where
then you
where
proved me
where
wrong.
does
But they
where did I
didn't, because
say
Adam and Eve were the first people.
where
And
did I
before,
say you're just not tracking? Where did I say malaria comes from? Let's start there. You can unmute yourself. Are you gonna unmute? Going once.
did that
Okay.
myself or did you do that? I think I did that myself. My fault. Hey, but my phone's
Okay.
at like 1%, bro.
Of
I see like where
course.
you're coming from with it, I guess, but not.
Thank you for being insanely bad faith. I will be moving on to the next guest.
Hi there.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. How about you?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for asking. Are you 18
It's
or
well.
older?
Yeah, I'm 20 years old.
Okay. Yeah, do you think that a God exists?
Yes, I do.
Okay, what's gonna be your strongest argument or evidence to think that a God exists?
The impossibility of the contrary.
Okay, so can you prove that it's wait, hold on. The impossibility of the contrary of what? Of God not existing?
Of
Right?
alternative worldviews.
Oh, tag. Okay. Yeah, can we justify the impossibility of the contrary? How are you justifying that?
Yeah, sure. It's a necessary character set.
Okay, why is it necessary?
It's necessary because it's required to ground transcendentals, which are
And why
required
is
for
it
knowledge,
why is it required to ground transcendentals?
in order to have knowledge.
Okay, but do you understand how it's begging the question again?
Say again.
Okay, once again, your claim is that it's required, that it's necessary to ground these things. I'm asking you, why is that the case?
If you're going to try and say it's circular, I'm not going to deny that.
I didn't say anything about, listen, you're projecting. I didn't say anything about it being circular. I'm just asking you to
No.
justify the premise.
No. Hear what I'm saying. I'm saying that tag doesn't say that it's not circular. It says that every worldview is circular at the epistemic level.
Oh, okay. If everything's circular, then I can just say that
No.
knowledge is. Oh no! You literally just.
Maybe you're
Okay,
not
we're already
following.
breaking down. We're
Maybe
already
you're
breaking
not
down.
tracking, bro.
I'm not tracking.
Yeah,
Right.
you're
Okay.
not tracking.
Let's run this one more time. Right.
Yeah,
So
sure, man.
your claim was that the reason why God exists is because of the impossibility of the contrary.
Yeah.
Fine. Can you justify that statement? What's the argument
Yeah.
for that statement?
Yeah, because there's necessary character set to fulfill necessary preconditions to have knowledge.
Okay.
Like,
Why is that the
you
case?
can deny that, but then you don't have knowledge.
I'm not denying it. I'm asking you to justify the claim. Why is it necessary?
Which part are you asking specifically? Why the character set is necessary?
Why any? Yeah. Why are those
Oh, yeah.
necessary?
Okay. The character set is necessary is because there's certain transcendentals, and if your idea of God, like let's take the Islamic God, if that fails to ground these transcendentals, then it's not God.
Okay. So why would I think they need to be grounded in a God?
Let's just take your worldview. Okay, I'm just gonna grant
No,
you.
we're not pivoting. No, answer the question. Why would they need to be
Wait, how did
grounded
I
by
pivot?
God?
Could you tell
You're
me how
because
I pivoted?
you're pivoting to my worldview, but that has no relevance. It could be the case that my worldview is completely irrational, but it wouldn't follow that your worldview is correct. So you still have to justify your worldview.
Mhm.
So go ahead, give the
Yeah.
argument as to why God is
So
necessary to ground
what
those
are you
transcendentals.
specifically asking?
I'm asking for your justification of the claim that God is necessary to ground transcendentals.
Oh, okay. Because there's specific transcendentals which could only be if the Christian God exists.
Why is that the case? What's the argument for that?
Because the Christian God has a character set which justifies them.
Okay, how are they justifying them?
I can give you an example if you want. So,
Yes, whatever.
because it's a big question, because there's obviously lots of transcendentals and there's lots of parts of the character set. But let's go to the Trinity. Okay, the Trinity grounds the one and the many. Do you know the one and the many?
No.
So the one and the many is about unity and diversity. Like, why is there unity among
Wait, and
diversity?
I'm sorry. Hold on. Before you even get to that,
Mhm.
how do you know it to be the case that the Trinity grounds these things?
I'm about to explain if you'd let me speak.
Go ahead.
Okay, cool.
Wait, actually, no. Sorry. How do you know the Trinity exists in the first place to ground those things? Because when
This
they
is
have,
literally
when,
what's in question. I'm about to answer you, bro.
but you realize in saying that the
Why are you
Trinity
panicking?
grounds the thing, I'm not panicking. I think you
Then why
are.
don't you let me answer the
Again, you
question?
have this kind of. I noticed this, but like you're kind of projecting, right?
Are you doing
The
an ad
first thing you said
hominem?
was,
Really, bro? I'm trying to
"I'm
answer your
not." I mean,
question.
I'm just making an observation, right?
Why
All
are
I'm
you
saying is,
filibustering, bro?
if you're, I'm not filibustering, right? All I'm saying is, your claim is that the Trinity is what grounds the one of many. But
Yeah.
in order to ground something, wouldn't you agree that that thing that grounds to something needs to already exist to ground that thing?
Yeah, of course, but obviously
Okay,
that's
so what's going to be
completely.
the argument that the Trinity exists to ground those things?
But you're just shifting the character set because if you're asking,
We're not shifting anything. I'm
can you
just
let me
asking you to
explain,
justify
bro?
your
Are you gonna
claim.
let me speak, or are you just gonna keep talking over me?
Well, you're already starting it off a false premise saying that I'm
Okay, let
shifting.
me
I'm
talk
not.
then. If you don't, if
Go
I
ahead.
shift, go ahead. Okay, so I take it you're asking. Let's say, God. You're saying God grants these things, but why do we grant God? Is that what you're asking?
No, what I'm asking is if you're saying that the Trinity grounds something,
Hmm.
I'm asking you to justify the existence of the Trinity first, and then once you demonstrated that that thing exists, then
Okay.
you can
Okay, I
give the
understand.
argument why it grounds it.
Can I ask you something?
Go
And
ahead.
I'm just going to do an illustration. Don't think I'm dodging. I'm not. I'm answering your question with an illustration. So, if I have a cake, right? Yeah. What was needed to make the cake? If you don't mind me asking.
Type of cake, but like the general cake recipes, it involves like eggs,
Yeah.
milk,
Yeah, yeah,
things like that.
for sure. So you would agree that eggs, milk, flour is a necessary precondition of a cake, right?
Um, well, what do you mean, like necessary precondition? Like in order to make a cake, you need those things, is that what
Yeah.
you're saying? I can't, you might have got a call or something, but I can't hear you if you're off the app.
Sorry, I think I had a battery issue. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah,
Okay. What I was saying is that yeah, you're right. I'm talking about like what makes a cake. That would be a precondition of the cake, right?
right.
Okay. So if these things are a necessary precondition to have cakeness, and the cake exists, I think it's fair to say that these things also had to exist in order for the cake to exist. No.
Right, but the problem with this analogy, and you're comparing it to
Mm-hmm.
the transcendentals, is for the ingredients of cake. Like if you were to look at and examine what an egg is or what milk is, right? Those things, obviously, I wouldn't say they're axiomatic, but like obviously they exist, right? You can see
Okay,
that.
you're not
You can.
understanding the analogy.
How am I not understanding the analogy? That's the point of this
Because I'm not
analogy is to show
the
that there.
analogy. The analogy isn't referring to the actual properties within the properties, because that's just like I did that as an illustration. If you want me to put it in a mathematical format, I can. X is a
I get
necessary
the point.
precondition of
Yeah,
y. Y
I
therefore
get
X.
that. I get that, right? But I'm asking you, right? If I were to ask you, if someone were to say, yeah, eggs are the necessary precondition for cake, right? And I were to ask, okay, can you justify that presupposition, right? You would demonstrate how eggs are needed to make a cake, right? I would say, okay, right, because of the certain properties of an egg, right? You have
Yeah.
like like again, like you would need that to make the cake. But in
Mhm.
in the condition of God and the
That's because cakes are
transcendentals,
contingent. It's an analogy, bro.
that has no relevant. Okay, the
Yeah,
point
it
here is
does.
what
You
we're
can't
talking
take
when we're
something
talking about God.
dependent and then like, what are you talking about?
Well, again, right? We know that eggs exist. We don't know that a God exists, right?
You're not.
That's the ultimate comparison I'm
Yeah.
making
Do
here.
you want to
So I'm asking
do you
you.
want me to put it in a different format so maybe you
No,
can
it does.
understand it better?
No matter what format you put it in,
You're
it's
not
going to be the
following,
same
bro.
issue.
No,
I'm literally
you're
tracking
not
this
you're not
perfectly
tracking it.
well.
I promise you, bro. You're not tracking it.
Okay, so tell me where I'm going. So tell me where I'm going wrong, right?
Yeah,
So
sure.
with your
I can.
analogy.
You asked me a question. You asked me to show you where you're going wrong. I'm about to tell you.
Well, no, I'm going to walk you through it and then tell me where you
Why would you
disagree.
walk me through the thing that you don't know?
Because
I'm
you're
asking
saying that
to
I'm
help
not
you.
tracking, but I need to
Yeah,
demonstrate to you
so
that
I'm
I
gonna
am tracking.
demonstrate it to you. Let me speak, bro.
No, if you're saying I'm not tracking, let
You're
me tell you what let me steelman your position, right? And then tell me
yeah,
where
sure.
I'm not tracking, right?
Okay,
So
yeah, sure. Go ahead.
what you said was, right, this cake
Mhm,
analogy is that we would agree that in order to have a cake, right, you have these
mhm.
necessary preconditions, right?
Yeah,
So it's assumed that if a cake exists,
yeah,
right, then it would also follow that therefore because of this cake, right, it would follow that these necessary preconditions of the cake, like eggs, milk, or whatever, right, it would
yeah,
follow that these things also exist. Is that what
yeah.
you're saying with this analogy?
Um, yeah, but there's one part where you're missing
So
something.
okay,
Wait,
okay,
wait, wait.
what am I
I said
missing?
there's
What am I
one part
missing?
where you're missing something. You asked me to tell you where you're not following.
Yeah,
Okay,
go ahead.
so I'm gonna tell you. Right. Because where you're going with this is you're going to say, well, the cake is contingent and the eggs had to come from somewhere and we can explain that. But that's obviously not the
That
analogy.
wasn't what I was gonna say.
I'll put it in a mathematical format and you address the mathematical format, okay?
I get it. You already walked
X,
me through it. X
X,
exists, or X
no,
is
that's
the is
not that.
X or no, I get it. I get it. X is the necessary precondition for Y. Y exists, therefore X. I understand
Yeah,
the equation.
okay.
So to be clear, right? The reason why this argument, like especially when it comes to God and transcendentals, isn't sufficient evidence for God's existence is because it's already pre-assumed because like intelligibility or logic or whatever you posit in as why, right, that it exists, that therefore God exists, right? But obviously, right, that doesn't that if I run a parity argument, if I say, I don't know, if I say that
Hmm.
glass exists, or if I say that I don't know, like something random, like pigs flying is the
Yeah.
precondition for glass existing. Glass exists, so therefore pigs fly.
Well, no,
Obviously,
because
that doesn't
yeah,
follow,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Of
So
course.
in the same way, right, when we're talking about God, right, first thing, okay, God is a necessary precondition for logic. Logic
Yeah,
exists,
I
therefore
get what you're
God
saying.
exists, right?
You're communicating the God of the gaps fallacy. I understand what you're saying. But what I'm doing isn't the God of the gaps fallacy because I can explain why he's a necessary preconditions. I don't just
Okay, yeah.
say, well, he is, so therefore he is. That's obviously stupid.
So why is he the necessary precondition?
And like I said, there's many different ways, and I can go into it in lots of depth. But you're gonna have to like actually
Just
listen,
give
or
me
you're
the
not gonna
simplest.
miss it.
I think it's better for me and the
You're asking
audience,
for a
right?
simple answer to something that's not simple and takes time to go through.
Well, I mean, the symbol. I mean, I'm not saying that you can't like go into
I can
complexities, but
give you one
obviously cut
example
corners where
of
you
all the
can, right? If
transcendentals.
you can explain it in less words, then do it. But if you can't, that's fine. Just give the justification. That's all I really want at the end of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
day.
of course. I'm happy to give you the justification. I'm just saying, if you think it's going to be like a one sentence answer, that's
No,
like
no, I'm not. No, no.
unreasonable.
All I meant by that is just try to like obviously,
Yeah.
because not
So,
everyone is familiar with that type of
so what I'm
or
gonna,
linguistical stuff. So just keep it as general as you can. But obviously, there are going to
yeah,
be
of
some parts
course.
that are yes. Just go ahead.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look right now, because to make it quick for you, I'm not going to go through every single transcendental and how he accounts for every single one. I can if you want, but it's going to take time and a lot
Okay,
of
so do you
listening.
realize? Okay, so we're already having a problem, right? So if we're saying he
No,
accounts for these things, he
no, no,
has
no,
to
no.
exist in the first place to account for these things.
You're not
But
listening.
his existence, I don't think you're tracking.
No,
If you're
you're not
saying
tracking,
that,
bro.
if you're saying that you're giving me, oh shit, hold on a second, AirPods died. Hold up.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'm back.
Yeah, what's up, bro?
So I want you to give me
Yeah.
first the argument that concludes with therefore God exists. That's what I'm looking for. So can you present that?
Yeah, but there's a little bit of a assumption here in that the argument is deductive when it isn't.
Okay, so when you're
I can
saying
present
that,
it in a deductive way, but you're gonna have to like let
I
me
mean,
explain it.
I just all I want, right? And it doesn't have to necessarily be like the most like it doesn't have to be like a
Yeah.
completely composed syllogism or anything
Yeah,
like that.
sure.
All I want is just like the justification for God's
Yeah.
existence,
Can you just
and
let
then
me
you can
ask one thing, right? And actually
go,
take the time to understand what I'm saying.
go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to, because for the sake of time, because you said you just want me to say it quickly, I'm just going to reference one transcendental, right? And don't then bait and switch and say, well, what about all these other transcendentals? Because I've already said I'm just going to focus on one because you said you wanted me to be quick. So don't do that switcheroonie where you
I
say,
don't want you to prove to me transcendentals. I
no,
want you to prove to me that
can
God
you just,
exists.
you're not listening to me.
I am listening. You said you're going to present.
Your original question, right, was why is God the necessary precondition of why? And you asked
Mhm.
for an example, so I'm about to give you an example of how I can show he's a necessary precondition of why. And now I'm doing this. You're like, well, why don't you tell me about God? I'm like, well, that's literally what you just asked, bro.
Okay, that's fine. Just
Are you
go
not
ahead, go
tracking
for
the
it.
conversation? Like, are you
Give the
slow?
ground, and then once you give the grounding for God's existence, or not for God's existence, for God's grounding of these things, then I want you to give me the argument that God exists to ground these things. So go ahead. You can give the argument.
No,
I'll
but
engage
you've
with
already
it.
agreed to the premise, bro.
Again, all I'm saying here, right,
Can you
is
remember what
that
the
I
premise
want you to
was?
give the premise of what I asked you or
Do
what
you
you asked
remember
me.
the premise of my argument? Or do you not even remember the premise of my argument?
The premise of your argument. So what you were talking about is you're trying to give an account
No,
for
that's not
how
the premise.
God ground.
That's not the premise. I explained the premise pretty thoroughly. If you've already lost track,
What
that's
was the
on you then.
premise?
That X is a necessary precondition of Y.
Brother,
Therefore
that's
X.
literally what I was. By me saying that your premise was that God is the necessary preconditions
No,
for these transcendentals, and you're going to give an argument
no.
to support that,
Yeah,
it's
you're not
already
following.
implied, brother. This is like incredibly bad
You're
faith.
you're
Like
not following. I
I'm,
can tell you
oh
specifically
my
how you're
God.
not following if you want me to. Is that you asked, right? You agreed to the premise that if X can be proven to be the necessary precondition
I
of
never
Y,
agreed to that.
Y
No,
therefore X.
I
And
never
then you
agreed to
go,
that.
oh,
I
well,
showed
if
you
you
the
do that, you're going
absurdity.
to also have to prove how X exists. It's like, bro, you agreed to the premise, bro.
I never agreed to the. I
And now
literally
you're
gave
baiting and
you.
switching. Like,
Oh
what the
my
fuck?
God, this is insanely. Like I literally gave you the parody argument about the glass and about a flying pig
Okay,
to
tell me
demonstrate to you how that doesn't work.
the flying pig can't account for subject object predication, nor can it account for the one and the many, nor does it have the
If
necessary
I say it does,
attributes to
if I
ground
say if I saying that if I say that flying
universals.
pig, if I say that flying pig accounts for all of those things, right? It has the
Yeah.
same grounding for you saying that God grounds those things. That was
No,
the
because
point of the analogy.
no, that's not a good analogy because that's not what I'm doing. I'm not saying, well, God, therefore all these things exist. That's not what I'm doing.
You quite literally are.
No, I'm literally not
You're
doing it.
saying that
You
the
don't understand the
impossibility
argument, bro. You
contrary.
don't even know what the
I
one and
don't
the
think
many problem is. You don't even understand the basics of the transcendental argument, bro.
bec- oh my God.
Like, do you even understand the basics? You didn't even know what the one and the many problem is, bro. If you think that I'm here saying, well, God, therefore transcendentals, like that's not my argument. Because I have to
You're
the
saying that in order to ground these transcendentals, right, you need a God, right? Otherwise you
no,
can't
no, no,
ground
not just
these.
any God.
That's what you're saying.
No, that's not what I'm positing. I'm not saying that any God can solve this issue. I said that there's a necessary character set. And I can tell you the necessary character set, which would be required, and tell you why it's required. If you don't want to hear that, then you don't actually want to hear the argument, and then I may as
What I
well.
want to hear, what I want to hear, and this is like I don't know how to make this more clear. What I just want to hear is the evidence that God exists. That's what
Yeah,
this live is about.
I'm giving
So
it to you, and you're not even willing to hear it.
let's get the argument. Let's go. Let's run it.
Okay. So, are you familiar with the problem of the one and the many?
No.
It's a problem which Plato was the first one to talk about, which he tried to resolve with his forms, but obviously he failed. But the problem of the one and the many is that why isn't everything different, or why isn't everything just one? Why do we have unity among diversity? In that, for instance, I'll give you an example. A grain of grass is different to a tree, right? Right?
Yeah, I guess in some sense.
But then they share the unity in that they both have green, in that the tree has green leaves and that the grass is green. So there's a unity among diversity. So the problem that's trying to be solved here is what character set is required to ground unity among diversity, right?
Why does there need to be a ground there?
Otherwise, why does it exist? Can you tell me how else it would exist?
So suppose I can't give you another answer to that. Would it follow that therefore it needs a grounding?
If you are to assert that it's real, then yeah.
Why would by me asserting that it's real, why would it follow that it would need a grounding?
So are you saying that there isn't unity among diversity? Then you're going to have to
That's not what I'm saying.
demonstrate
What I'm
that.
saying is suppose I'm literally granting you, right?
Okay.
That suppose it is the case that this uniformity exists, right?
Yeah.
I'm asking you, why does there need to be a ground there? Like why can't these things just exist and they just exist?
Uniform. Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Well, that would be called arbitrary and ad hoc. If you can just say these things exist because they just exist, then I can just do that with anything. I can say that we live in a giant's eye and say, well, this just exists because it exists. That's not giving a justification. That's called being arbitrary and ad hoc. Do you know
Right.
what it
So
means to be
what would be
arbitrary?
the problem? What would be the problem in saying these things are self-grounded?
Because are you saying that are you saying like the brute fact argument? Like, what of these things are all just brute facts?
It's I mean, again, I'm just positing different
Hmm.
hypothetical
Yeah,
responses, right?
sure.
I'm not
Well, what
subscribing to
you're
anything,
positing
but
is a brute fact argument in that why can't all these things just be brute facts, right? And why can't I just say these things are real without justification, right? Well, that's
sure.
the very problem. Like, you can't just say things are real and not give justification. Like, that's not scientific and that's not philosophical either.
Wait, so if I asked you why, like, if I reverse that question and ask you about God and say why
Yeah,
does God
sure, you
exist,
could
like,
do that. Yeah.
how could you account for that?
Well, that would be what's called in philosophy a category error, in that you are switching between what is ultimate and what is not ultimate. So things that exist, for instance, we'll just take
Wait,
something simple like
so does God not
matter.
exist?
No, that's not what I said. I said it was a category error.
No, I heard what you said, right? But
Mhm.
if I'm saying that in the same way that this uniformity exists,
Mhm.
right? God exists in some type of way, right? So if you're saying that the things that exist have some type of need for or need justification, right?
Mhm.
Wouldn't God follow that same line of reasoning? Because he exists?
No, because that would be making a category error. I've already explained.
It's not a
Because
category error. If
it
I've
is
already
because you're
if you
assuming
agreed,
contingency on something that is incontingent and independent.
I'm not talking about contingent. Like all I'm saying
No,
is
yes, you are, because the
I'm
only thing
positing.
using. No, you don't understand.
Oh
It's a
Lord.
category error. You like, do you even know the basics?
I know the basics of the
Well, you
transcendental
don't.
argument. I
You didn't even
do.
know the problem of the one and the many.
I
You don't
do.
even know the basics.
Brother, that's not the basic of the
Yes, it is.
oh my God.
Yo,
The
what's
one and the
going?
many is one of the key
What,
points and how it's grounded.
okay, what's going on? What's going on? What's going
It's
on?
good. Okay, so
Yo, what's he saying? What's
Chris
he saying?
he's running tag.
But you
So
need your friend to help you, Greg.
Oh,
You need
he's
your
running
friend to help you.
tag.
Why do you
He
need your
doesn't need
friend,
me to
Greg?
help, but I can just. But you're running tag, right? So you think that there's, no real grounding separate from God?
Well, that's not exactly what it is. It's that you can't ground anything separate from God. And not
Yeah,
just
that's the
any
same
God,
thing
the
I just said,
Christian
right?
God.
What's the difference between what I just said and what you just said?
Because what you just said is suggesting that other things can ground it. What I said is that they can't
No,
ground
what
it.
I said was no. What I said was you cannot ground something separate from God. That's what I said.
Yeah, sure. I may have misunderstood what you said then.
Yeah, right. So, okay, great. So, you have an epistemological view, great, and you think knowledge separate from you can't derive knowledge, you can't ground anything separate from God. Okay, so what's your argument against infinitism? What's your argument against all these theories of
Well, there's only
epistemology?
5 places you can really go.
Great,
6
but
if you include the triune God.
all right, wait. So, but yeah. So, what's the argument against infinitism?
So, are you saying that everything is an infinite regress?
No, I'm saying that we have. Well, I'm taking Peter D. Klein's view of infinitism. Are you aware of that?
I can't hear you.
Taking Peter D. Klein's view. Are you
I
aware of
don't
that?
know. I'm not aware of Peter D. Klein.
Okay, so Peter D. Klein's view supposes that there's an infinite amount of justifications that we can use. We
Yeah.
as humans have a set, or we have enough access to the chain to the point where we give justification for any given proposition.
Yeah.
And that's what infinitism is basically. Is
Okay.
saying that.
So it's just infinite regress. Yeah.
Well,
That's what it
infinite
is.
regress, yeah.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
it's saying infinite regress. Well, you're gonna tell
Yeah,
me
but
how there are.
we don't have full access to the infinite regress, so that's the thing. Like we don't have full access to it. We only have access to enough of the set where we can justify any claim.
Okay. Do you believe in unchanging universal laws,
Can you elaborate?
like the laws of logic?
No, I don't believe in the laws of logic. I think the laws of logic.
Okay. Well, yeah. This is the thing, man. Like with the transcendental argument, it's Christ or chaos. So you can happily choose chaos if you want, and say that you can't have logic, and you can't have consistency, and you
No,
can't
that's
have.
not the claim. The claim is I disagree with
You
the laws of
literally just
logic.
said you don't believe in the laws of logic.
Yeah, so the law of the logic, you're talking about classical logic, as in the three laws of thought. That's what most people say when they say the laws of logic.
Yep.
That's what I'm
The laws
disagreeing
of
with. Yeah,
non-contradiction,
yeah, I
the
agree.
laws of the
So
middle.
yeah, I mean, if you say you can just choose chaos, well, listen, I would like to hear any argument that establishes the classical logic, is true. I'd like to hear an argument against Prim, for example. If you can give an argument against a Prim, because that's a direct counterexample to the law of identity. Are you aware of Prim? Because I remember I remember when I came up here, you were trying to, do the
Where
dog
did
pile
your boy
stuff on
go?
K.
Where did your boy go? Did you need to help him? Can your
Wait, why
boy
are you
speak for
running away?
himself? Does he
You
need
were
you
Wait,
to
just,
speak
you were
for him?
just
brother,
doing this
we
thing
were
against,
engaged.
bro, you were just doing this thing with Kay about how Kay doesn't know anything, but then when I do it to you, you're over here saying, oh, you
No,
need help?
because I'm not claiming to know about your claim. He said he knows the transcendental argument, and I
Yeah,
brought up
you're trying
basic
to
It's
stuff about the
dogpile him. You're
transcendental
saying that
argument.
he
it's
doesn't know anything.
You're bringing up a different worldview, which I'm not aware of. I never claimed that I was aware of
Wait, but no, no,
universalism.
no. But didn't you say that you wanted me to give you a worldview to examine, right? Because that's what your claim was, the impossibility of the contrary. You wanted
Yeah,
to compare worldviews. So he's
yeah,
giving you a
sure.
worldview,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and
That's
I've
that.
just, yeah, that's fine.
So
That
that means
you're
that
just what he just said. What he just said was, why was I making fun of you for not knowing the one and the many when I don't know this? And I'm saying, well, I never claimed to know this. He claimed to know the transcendental argument.
yes, the transcendental argument. I'm
So you
Yeah, I
familiar
didn't know
mean,
with.
the
you can
basics of the
claim to
It's
know,
transcendental
not.
you can
argument,
claim to
bro. You
know,
can't claim
wait,
to know it and then
wait,
not know it.
you can claim to know epistemology and say, oh, well, I know what
No,
infinitism
that's
is,
not what he
but not
claimed.
know.
What did he claim?
Wait,
Did I say that he claimed
hold
that?
on,
The
hold on, dumbass. Wait, hold on. So when you say I know a specific argument, that does not entail that you know every single thing about the argument. So the one of the many argument does, when you say I know tag, we know the basic form of tag. Basic form of tag is just establishing that there is no grounding for any sort of thing, including knowledge, separate
outside
from
of
God.
God. Exactly.
That's what tag is. So if you know one of the many arguments, that's further knowledge towards tag. But to say I know tag does not instantiate that I know one of the many. That does not instantiate. The same way if I said I know epistemology, I can say I know infinitism, not I know every single thing about it. I don't know what foundationalism is. I don't know what elliptic functionalism is. I don't know any of these things.
But one and the many is a key point of tag. So if you say that you are aware
That's a
of
key
tag,
point in your tag. I've never run across any type of tag runner that's specifically kind of hinged upon the one to many idea. Really, all they talk about is just like they just talk about the again how it's impossible to ground things without God, and then they get into that and they say things like
yeah,
impossibility of the contrary and stuff like
mhm,
that, right? So if you're running that, that's fine,
yeah,
right? But I've never talked to you before, so for you to
yeah,
get mad at me for not knowing that's how you like to run your argument, that's just I don't know.
yeah.
That's kind
I
of
guess it's because I'm new.
dishonest.
I guess it's because I'm new to TikTok, and most people will probably say the argument in a very quick way because it's quite about speed on TikTok rather than in-depth thinking. So
I would agree.
yeah, I could grant that, and then I could retract what I said. Like
Okay, that's fine. I listen.
I
All
apologize if I was rude.
you're good. Don't worry about it. So let's just move forward in the dialectic. So all we
Yeah,
really want to do here is kind of establish this claim that you made, right?
yeah,
Whether it was the possibility of the contrary, right? And that's what we've been kind of stuck on this entire time,
yeah,
right?
sure.
But I think it would be easier. Like, do you just have like like? I think if we just run through like a deductive argument, like the typical variation of tag, I think it's just easier to
Wait,
follow
the
Well,
that way
yeah,
typical
for
but
variation
everyone.
of
I
tag isn't
also
deductive.
want him to like respond to my point though, because he never did.
Oh,
Oh,
well,
what was
that
your
too.
point
Go
about
ahead.
universalism?
He said what?
What was your point? You said that the laws of logic
Yeah,
don't
so
exist.
I said, presumably you take the laws of logic are true. So I would just like a rebuttal against Prem, or the rebuttal against trivialism, or there's there's certain rebuttals
Yeah,
against them. I would just like to hear an argument against them.
yeah. Could you tell me what prim is?
Is a study conducted by a specific philosopher, and basically what they say is that when you say the law of identity, you're saying A implies A, and that's trivially true. A implies A. That's what the law of identity states. So, the response to this is prim, is we can conceive of something which is true in a premise but is false in a conclusion. We can obviously derive this, given that it's conceivable, and we say that it is true that something is true in the premise but false in the conclusion, well then that would mean that's direct counterexample to the law of identity, because then that would mean A does not equal A.
Okay. So, well, you're talking about the law of identity, right? And the argument for law of identity, I'm not when someone says that something has identity because it has identity, That's not really the argument that anyone really
No,
posits.
what the law of identity states is that for any proposition or for any entity or for any agent, it is always equal to itself, and that directly translated into variables
God is
means
real.
A
God is
equals
real.
A.
Oh, I got him.
Yeah.
Don't worry about
Wait,
it.
did my PFP stuff change, bro?
It did again.
Yeah.
Wait, is my name different now? Is it Vermilia
Yeah.
Banzer still?
It was earlier, but it's Evil Macy now.
Wait, on my screen it says Vermilia Banzer. Wait, did my profile picture just changed again? What the
Yeah.
fuck? Wait, is it showing the one that it was showing originally or no?
No, it's the one that it was doing earlier today. I'm pretty sure.
What? On my screen it says Vermilia Bands. What? Hello?
Oh wait, yeah, it's back. It's back. It's back. I don't
Okay,
know
okay,
why,
let's go.
man.
Okay, let's go. Yeah, but like I was saying, the
Yeah,
law
I
of
understand what
identity
you're
is being
saying.
changed. Yeah, so A implies
Yeah.
A. But then if we use prem, and that's obviously conceivable, then that's a direct counterexample to the law of identity because it substantiates that A does not equal A.
Okay. Well, what I'm saying here is I understand the law of identity, but I'm saying that within tag, we ground the law of identity. Whereas what you're doing is sort of saying, well, in conclusion, the law of identity is false. But that would just be falsifying the law of identity because you refuse to ground it.
What, bro? When you ground something, that means you substantiate the thing which we're grounding. In order to ground knowledge, we have to show that knowledge is true. The thing about grounding something means you're establishing it as true and you're proving how it's true. It's in the same sense as that when we say you cannot ground something separate from, you cannot ground anything separate from God. What you're saying is it is not true that you can prove anything. It is not true that something is justifiable as separate from God. And God is what makes these things justifiable. To say that you cannot substantiate, or the reason why we can deny the law of identity is because you haven't grounded it. Is to say, well, yeah, no, the reason why you're saying the law of identity is false is because you haven't proved it's true. Well, the point is that it isn't true. That's the entire point.
Yeah. And then I'm going to say to you that if that's the case, sure, then how would you be able to actualize anything you see?
By actualize, you just mean empiricize on anything we can see.
Yeah, like how would you be
Well,
able to
we already
get
have a study that our
intelligibility
census is
from anything you
reliable,
see?
and Prem does not say that absolutely the law of identity is always false in every single occasion. You know what? The law of identity states is necessarily for all things, for all x, x will be always identical to itself. But what
You just
Prem
said it's
disagrees
false.
with, wait, yeah, I'm saying it's false for the universal claim that it makes, right? For the all x. Do you know what the universal instantiation is?
Are you saying that it's true only when you say it's universal? Sorry, you're saying it's false.
Wait, no, wait. I'm
Saying
saying,
it's
do you
universal.
understand what a universal instantiation is, or like a universal claim in predicate logic? Do you know what that is?
Universal instantiation? No.
Well, first we have to talk about universals and predicate logic. Universals and predicate logic is basically establishments saying for all x, then we have existential claims that just make a claim about some x. So what that would look like in chat. I can just put it in chat right here. So this.
Why can't you stay on your claim?
Well, yeah, I'm staying on my claim. Hold on, I'm about to just get into it. So when
Okay.
we make that symbol in chat, that just means for all x, right? So I'm gonna make the entire thing for you real quick. So what this says is, for all x, x will be always identical to x.
Yeah.
Right, this is probably butchered, right? But
Okay.
the point is that for all x,
For all
x is always
x.
equal to x. So what that means is just that for any object, for any agent, for any entity, for any proposition, it would always be identical to itself. That's the claim that the law of identity makes. It claims that every single thing that will ever exist will always be identical to itself. What Prem disagrees with is the universal claim. It says, well, for some x, right? Or at least for majority of x, yeah, x would be identical to itself, right?
Yeah.
But what it's saying is not that universally all things will always be identical to itself, because we can obviously conceive of things which are no longer identical to itself. So we would just say a or x is there exists some x where x is not equal to x.
Wait,
so-
hold on.
And this is what we
so
can say right here.
What can you conceive which is different to what it is?
Right, like I gave you an example, the Prem example, something true in a premise but false in the conclusion.
There exists X. So also, remember, I have a question. So for the second, for all of X, X does not equal X. Would that change the truth table?
Well,
associated with the law of identity, or would it still follow like
yeah,
just
yeah. When you say, well, for the second one, it says there exists some x where x is not equal to x. The truth table that changes there. Oh my God, he gave me a galaxy.
yo,
Thank you.
Philo with the
Yo,
galaxy, crazy
W
word.
Pillow Dragon. Yeah, but yeah, what I was, thank you, by the way, thank you so much. But what I was saying is, the truth table changes, as in, what we're saying is that, when you're saying, okay, so first one, we have to talk about the first one. The first one says, it establishes the truth value, that it is always true, right?
Philo with the other yo,
Yo,
come
he's
on, bro.
goaded, bro, he's goaded.
Philo, you're actually
Yo,
him, bro.
yo, hey, bro. Spam W Pillow
Appreciate
Dragon
that.
in chat, W Pillow Dragon in
We
chat.
need W's in the chat, guys, please. For Phil
Even though there's six
Dragon.
people here, even though there's six people here. Hey, bro, I'll put my mix in it. I'll put my mix in it. But
Yeah, I think I can contribute to. Hold
Yeah,
on.
I'm following what you're saying. You're saying
yeah,
that.
my bad. Hold on, give me 1 second. Wait. So the for all x thing, what establishes just the truth value is just that it is true in all instances, right? So that's what it's positing for.
Can I clarify?
Yeah, you can clarify.
Yeah, sure. So you're saying because you can write down that x equals something to not itself, therefore that somehow.
Yeah, well, the content of the proposition of what we're talking about, what establishes is yes, because for any argument, like we can include monist opponents, we can include like any sort of fellow argument that has a premise and a conclusion, or even if it's informal, it always substitute a specific value. So if I were to say, if it was the case that it's raining, then the ground is wet, what I establish is if P then Q, which is the variables which are established.
Yeah,
but
I'm trying to understand you. So
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be bad faith. I'm trying to understand what you're saying. So would you say that there's ever a time where you could say x equals x and call that false?
Well, to say x equals x, and say
Could
it's
that ever be
false.
false?
Well, could x equaling x ever be false?
Yeah.
Well, as in, x equaling x can be false because x cannot equal x. But if you just mean
No, but if I
it
state
is
x
true that
equals
x
x,
equals
that's saying it's not false. That's what you're
but
doing.
no, but hold on, no. What you say? If I say that x equals x, then it is not false. You said?
Yeah. So if I say x equals x, right?
Yeah, what you're establishing there is that it is the case that x is x. That could be false. Yeah. In the same sense, if I said
Can you
that a
demonstrate how that's
flamingo,
false?
wait, can I demonstrate how it's false? Yeah, great. So in the same sense, if I say Peter Parker is not Spider-Man or something, or Peter Parker is Spider-Man, right? Someone could say, well, that's false because Peter Parker and Spider-Man are two different beings. In the same way, they would say, well, x is not equal to x. Even though it's true that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, someone can say, well, no, this is false because Peter Parker and Spider-Man are two different identities. They're two different people. So,
Is Peter Parker Peter Parker?
yes, Peter Parker is Peter Parker.
Can that ever be false?
Can Peter Parker being Peter Parker ever be false? Yeah, we can obviously conceive of it, but generally, no.
What I'm trying to establish is the reason I gave the simple example of x equaling x is that if you say it's false, then I'm going to ask, why would you do that? And by the sounds of it,
Okay,
you
so
say, well, x
you're
equals
just
something
confused
else.
you're just confused on prem. So think of it like this: if I say dialetheism is true, or premise one, dialetheism is true, that establishes x is true. Premise two says either here I can let me try for premise one says dialetheism is true, which establishes x.
What's
X is true.
what's
Premise two says if
dialetheism?
if dialetheism is true, then it leads to a bunch of absurd reductios and contradictions. Premise three, given that it leads to a lot of absurd reductios and contradictions, then it would not be the case that it's actually verifiable or justifiable in any way, shape, or form. So the conclusion would be that dialetheism is false. There you go. Premise one was established as x is true, and the conclusion was established as x is false.
Yeah. Could you clarify that just so I can understand? Because I'm actually trying to follow what you're saying.
Okay, yeah. So dialetheism is the view that supposes that contradictions can actually exist. There's a certain amount of contradictions that can actually exist. Dialetheists hold that the laws of logic are not true. The laws of explosion, aren't true either. So
Yeah, I've heard of
that's
that.
what they think. Yeah, all right, great. So premise one is establishing that dialetheism is true. Premise two is establishing that it leads into a lot of reductios and absurdities. Premise three is establishing that given that it leads to a lot of reductios and absurdities, then it is the case that it's unjustifiable or it's completely absurd and we should not adopt the worldview. And the conclusion establishes from that saying that, okay, well then if that's true, then dialetheism is false. and that follows because it's a reductio ad absurdum.
Oh yeah, I get what you're saying. So you're saying it's a reductio.
Yeah,
Yeah.
reductio ad absurdum. Proof, you know, you
Yeah,
can say
yeah.
proof by contradiction, you can proof by
So you're
absurdity.
saying that
Yeah,
if
so,
these things aren't true, well, they're impossible to not be true, and therefore they would be true by reductio.
what? No, I'm saying that given the view is true, and it's opposed to a lot of reductios, it's completely unjustifiable and unviable to hold a stance, given that it's absurd. It's completely absurd. So, therefore, it's false. That's what I'm saying.
Wait, so you're saying your view is false?
Yeah, the conclusion is the view is false.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
so
then
then,
sorry, I'm trying to understand because I think I spoke to someone recently who was talking about this. So you're saying that all of these things are absurd to believe in, right? Like, could you just clarify it one more time? I'm actually trying to follow.
okay, you want me to clarify the argument?
Yeah, maybe try and simple it and dumb it down for me, because maybe I'm
Okay, so
missing it.
premise one is dialetheism is true, which what we establish is X is true.
Yeah,
Premise two, X is true.
yeah,
Premise two, if dialetheism is true, then it leads to a bunch of absurd conclusions and a bunch of reductios. Premise three. Given that it leads into a bunch of absurd reductios or absurd conclusions and a lot of reductios, it is completely unjustifiable and completely absurd to hold the view.
yeah, that makes
And
sense.
the conclusion is now that dialetheism is false because we just proof by it's basically reductio ad absurdum. We do not
Yeah.
want to hurt absurd views. We think absurd views are idiotic. So if that's true, then there's no reason why we should hold an absurd view. So therefore, the view is false. That's reductio ad absurdum.
So you're saying that, remind me of that definition of that first word again. I can't even pronounce it.
Et cetera, et cetera. A lot of explosion.
Oh.
They think that true contradictions can exist.
Okay, so you're saying that if that's true, that's absurd, and it's proven
Yeah.
to be false.
Yeah. And you would agree with that because under your view, you think the laws of logic are true. They hold
Yeah.
that true contradictions exist. So, given that that's true, then it leads to a bunch of contradictions. And the contradictions, presumably, is that one, the laws of logic doesn't exist.
Okay, so you're saying that you have a word that means contradictions, and you're saying that if you say that equals true, that's false.
Yeah, that's if it's true, then that's if it's true, then it leads to a bunch of insane shit. It's absurd, therefore it's false.
Yeah, I don't really see how that. I guess either I'm missing it, or I don't really see how that proves contradictions to be true.
Wait, KK, do you understand what I'm saying?
Me? Oh, I'm not gonna lie. I've been doing other stuff. I've been letting you guys kind of talk it out.
Yeah, so what I was saying is this. I was saying,
Yeah.
for the premise example, we can say what we established for premise, that premise one, dialetheism is false. I don't know,
Right.
dialetheism is true. Premise two, if
But that would be a false
dialetheism,
statement saying it's true, right?
yeah, the conclusion would establish that it's false, right? But the premise one is just establishing it's true. So premise
But
one would
it's
be
not true. So how can you establish it as true?
Okay, do you know how reductio ad absurdum works? What the reductio ad absurdum works is that it supposes that the view is true, and then it leads it into an absurdity, proving that the view is false. That's the entire point of the conclusion, not premise one. Premise one, you're trying to suppose the worldview is true, and then you build on how the worldview leads into absurdity. Therefore, we should not adopt the worldview.
Right.
Or we can take a proof by contradiction model and say that if it was
I was
true,
just
suppose
about
that
to
it
say
is.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's literally a proof by contradiction.
Yeah, it's that's the entire point of
If it's
reductio ad
a proof by
absurdum.
contradiction, wouldn't that be affirming the laws of logic?
No.
How not?
So what a proof by contradiction does is it supposes that a view is true, and then it shows how the view is contradictory. So then what we establish is that X is true. If X is true, then it leads to a contradiction. Therefore, X is false. So premise one was X is true. Conclusion is X is false. This is a non-identical statement because what this is saying is that one, the truth value of it is true, and the conclusion of it is false, unless you reject reductio ad absurdum, which if you do, then I'm not gonna lie, I don't see any argument to reject proof by I don't see any argument that it successfully rejects Reductio ad absurdum.
Can I clarify it? And you just
Great.
and just simplify it where I go wrong. Okay. You're saying that you have this word that means contradictions, and if you say that's
Wait, hold
true,
on. Let me just explain it to Kay. Maybe he can explain it better than
yeah,
what I'm
sure.
doing. So
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So premise one was just that dialetheism is true. Premise two is that if dialetheism is true, then it leads to a bunch of reductios and absurd conclusions.
Yeah.
Premise three was that given that it leads to a bunch of reductios and absurd conclusions, then it's completely it's unjustifiable and it's absurd to hold the worldview. So the conclusion is just that dialetheism is false. Right, and that's supposed to be establishing premise one is x equals x. X is true, and the conclusion is x is false. But apparently, it's like really complicated. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it.
No, so yeah, if I'm tracking this right, all you're really saying is, okay, we're supposing this worldview, right? We're saying dialetheism is true, right? So if we suppose it's true, right, and we reduce it, right, that's what a reductio is, right? And we take it to its logical conclusions, right? And we would say that those conclusions are absurd because say they form some type of contradiction or something that goes against what the worldview posits, right? We would say that in which goes against itself or is contradictory or just kind of doesn't align with itself, we would say that that's like an irrational or guess like you can't really justify that position,
Oh,
and
I get
because
what
of
you're
that,
saying.
right, it
It's
leads to
clicked. It's
absurdity.
clicked. It's clicked.
Okay,
So
awesome.
yeah, I get it now.
Yeah.
So you're saying that if we presuppose that everything is chaos, and that is true, if something is saying that it's not chaos, then that is false.
What? No, I'm confused. So you're
Yeah,
using
I'm
chaos.
confused too.
You're using chaos in a weird way, right?
Okay, should I
So
use a different word?
yeah, use a different word because
Okay.
I'm not familiar with what you mean by chaos.
Okay. Okay. Let's say we presuppose the worldview of the word you use. I can't pronounce it. I'm not going to attempt to.
Dialetheism.
Dialetheism.
If we presuppose that to be true as what everything is, any attempt to try and deny it would be proven false because it's true.
No, that's
No.
the complete opposite. The thing is this, right? We're saying that if we establish that the worldview is true, then the worldview leads into a contradiction or it leads into absurdity. And if that is true that it leads into an absurdity, well then, then it just reduces down into absurdity and therefore it's false. That's
Yeah,
what we're saying.
Chris, have you heard of like an internal critique? That's kind of what that is, right? Like you're
Yeah.
assuming, yeah, that's essentially what he's basically saying in this argument. Like, okay, we're performing an internal critique on this particular worldview, right? And then we take it to its logical conclusions, right? And so if we're able to point out this kind of contradiction or thing that goes against itself, then it's an absurdity in the worldview, and we would say that like that in which leads
Why
to an
would that be an
absurdity.
absurdity in their worldview? Because they are saying that contradictions are true. So to say it's a contradiction,
Yeah, so to say
so
that
fair enough what they're
contradictions
saying.
are to say that no, their worldview doesn't take. Wait, no, yeah, the worldview does say contradictions is true. What it does
Yeah.
is it deny the laws of logic. You agree with the laws of logic.
Wait,
so it
pause.
is absurd.
Can you just hear what I'm saying quick? So let's say the worldview is that contradictions are true, but if that's the case, then you can't say that that's wrong because it's a contradiction, because they're saying that they're granting contradictions.
You just completely missed the point. The point is just that if contradictions are true, then it leads to a bunch of absurd conclusions and insane things. And we can prove that contradictions are false. The entire argument is supposed to be supposing that. And if they want an argument for premise 3, then we give the argument for premise 3. Premise 3 is establishing that it leads to absurd conclusions. Given the fact that it's contradictory, they can agree that it's contradictory, but our claim isn't that. Our claim isn't like something as basic as that. Our claim is that, well, given that it's contradictory and it will lead to a bunch of insane conclusions because contradictions are not true. And we can use a bunch of ways. So if they try to prove that contradictions are true, well, we just give an argument against that, right? But that's not really relevant to the argument right now because what we're doing is not establishing whether or not premise 3
I
is
get what
true.
you're
What
saying.
we're doing is
I
establishing
get
its
what you're
premise 1 conclusion is X is true and X is false.
Okay, let me clarify for the 20th time, and hopefully I get it right this time. So you're saying that because contradictions would lead to absurdity, that proves the law of contradiction without needing grounding. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that. How do I word this? I'm saying that given that the view is true, then the contradictions lead to absurdity. Given that we have an argument against contradictions being true, it would lead to absurdity, contradictions, etc., which leads the view into falsity.
Yeah, we would say the view's irrational because it's again like we're able to kind of point out um this absurdity in it, right? Because again, assuming we have this argument, like you said, to prove that contradictions can exist, and if you're actively affirming it, then our argument is essentially just kind of like the debunking of that worldview, I guess.
Okay, so you're saying that if you affirm contradictions, it leads to absurdity, right? Is that kind of the basis of what you're saying, or is there more to
Yeah,
it?
it's kind of like it's kind of like he's really just kind of like hammering the nail on this point that like the way like even if like this position held to contradictions, right? The important thing here is that we would have an argument or something in light of that like position that goes against that belief that contradictions can exist, and then we would examine the the arguments and then demonstrate the absurdity or the irrationalness of the position. And obviously, we would say that like an irrational position, right, would be a position that's just not like it couldn't be true, right?
Yeah.
So that's I think that's pretty much what he's trying to argue at this point,
Okay. I think I'm
honestly.
making you guys go around in circles because I'm not understanding it. Could
That's
you,
fine.
could you
By
tell
the way,
me?
Kay,
Could you
Yeah,
tell me what it's called so I
refer
can
to me with
research?
she, her pronouns.
yeah, I got you. My bad. I didn't know.
No, you're good. You're good.
Could you give me what it's called so I can research into it and try and understand it better in my own time?
Okay, so what it's called is prem, and the view that we're talking about is called dialetheism. You would have to go into the papers and the works about prem because saying prem, just looking up prem, you're not going to find it instantly. Maybe you can go on ChatGPT, look up the prem example, saying something is true and a prem is false in the conclusion. You can read a little bit up on that. I think the view's really interesting. I think that it gives an actual good reductio or an argument against the law of identity. And I think there's other examples we could use for the law of identity. We can say that through the law of non-contradiction, we can establish basically almost a lot of propositions true. Say that because the law of contradiction says that or a non-contradiction, or I can just say the law of excluded middle, for example. The law of excluded middle says, only the affirmation and negation of the proposition is true. It cannot be in the middle, right? Like there's no in between. Only the affirmation and the negation of the proposition is true. So through that we can lead it into trivialism or some shit. There's a specific way that's factored out, but
Mm.
I still can't believe, bro. Philo's a goat, bro. Philo really gave us both a galaxy.
Bro, he like I think he gave me a galaxy earlier. I don't know if it was today or yesterday, but I also gave him one yesterday. He's been really generous with the gifts. Is he still in here? Oh no! Oh, he is awesome. Yeah, Philip.
Could you spell it
Thank you
out
for
for me,
being
bro?
here.
Which one do you want me to spell out for you? Here.
Chat or something.
Yeah, I gotta figure out how
There
to
it
pin
is.
stuff in the chat. Figure where to pin stuff.
Yeah, because I don't even know how to do that, really.
All right. I'll have a look into that. But yeah,
Yeah,
it was
definitely.
good talking.
Alright, see you, buddy.
All right, safe one.
Yeah.
Damn. Man, bro, I really hate when like we get into like really good like philosophical discussion, but then like the views just like freaking just flat out
Tank,
because a lot of
yeah.
people don't, yeah, they just can't they can't track, and so they just leave. It is
I
what it
just
is.
like came up on here and I was like really like I was like weirded out because at first he was trying to like dogpile you and like just gap you on knowledge or some shit. So then when I was expecting him to be like really knowledgeable about stuff, and then I asked him does he even know what like a certain things are, and him saying no, I got like I got like, like, what was it? I got disappointed in a way. It was like really weird.
Yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't even that he was really dogpile. I think it was just like he was kind of hammering down this point that like his version of tag, ran. I think it was like the problem of many or something like that, and it's like obviously like your typical. I mean, at least from what I've experienced, right? Like your typical TikTok theist that's running tag, like I mean, at least from the ones that I've seen, they haven't really made a mention of that. Maybe it was implied, and maybe I didn't see it, but like. That's typically what they don't. Yeah, like they just kind of run like the deductive argument, like P1, P2 conclusion, therefore, whatever. Like that's what I'm used to. So when I say like when he asked me if I knew what tag was, it's like,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
I mean, like I have like, yeah, yeah. Most precepts don't study philosophy, right? So like that's why I've like had my fair share with jargoning precepts, so I know how to deal with them. It's insane. He's a precept, but like doesn't even know what infinism is. Like he doesn't know the epistemology. Like precepts, you know, constantly study metaphysics and like epistemology and stuff. So it's like not knowing what that is, not knowing what infinism is fucking crazy.
right. But then again, like you could have easily grilled him on that the same way that he was trying to grill me on the freaking whatchamacallit on the problem
I
of
was
many, but
going, yeah, I was going to, but it's like, dude, he was like, oh, infinite regresses are impossible because of like the laws of logic. I'm like, I like laughed at him like internally.
yeah, I mean, I feel like I laugh at all precepts internally because they think they're doing something, but they're really not. They're
No,
just
brother,
pseudo
no.
intellectuals. But I mean, honest, that was the
Are you
first. I
saying
mean,
that no God is real from an atheist point of view or an agnostic point? Well, it could be from either or. I don't really care.
right. I've had. Wait, have you had any like interactions with Dark Dawkins or P Mars? Because they've come
Yes,
up where
bro.
they tried.
I've beaten both of them like 5 times. I've like beaten them like five fucking. Okay, Pre Mars was like, okay, in a world where logic exists, how can we know anything? It's like, or how can we do anything? I'm like, okay, well, we can presuppose a world that exists where the law of logic aren't true. And he was like, no, it's impossible to conceive of a world where the laws of logic aren't true. I said, give me an argument for why. And he was like, the laws of logic are like the universal states or like foundation or some shit, some bullshit. And I was like, dude, this doesn't give me an argument for why the laws of logic or having a world where there's no laws of logic is not conceivable. Just give me an argument for that. And he like tried doing that for 5 minutes and kicked me off his panel.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like,
what they
okay,
do. When they realize they're cooked, they just kick you. They just kick you off their panel because they know they don't
yeah.
have an argument. But they tried to come up to like these lives a couple times. Like I think P Mars was in here the other day, and Darth used to be in my lives all the time. But I just never let them up because I just realized that like they're just so bad faith. Like it's not even worth trying to discuss with them because no matter what, like they're
Dude,
just
they're
not gonna.
fucking idiots, bro. They're like genuinely just confused on literally everything. Like
Yeah, that's
they're like laughing stocks in the community. I'm not sure why they're still here.
yeah. I mean, also them and Q Top as well. Have you had any engagements with Q Top?
Q-Top is like one of the best out of their group, and he thought like hypothetical syllogism was fucking invalid, bro. Like he's a fucking
Yeah,
moron.
yeah, no, yeah. I think they're
He
all
said
goofballs.
if you even speak, you're acknowledging God exists. I'm like, what?
Oh, I think cute. I don't know. I think a lot of people also have the same sentiment, but I have a theory that Q-Top actually isn't a Christian, but he's just using like the Christian, like the community of Christians as like monetary support. Because if you like, will notice like Q-Top, like he has like a family. I think he has like a son or something. He has like a wife, but like if you look at his videos, like when he's not on his live, like he looks like he's in like a lower income place. And so like I'm theorizing that like the reason why he like does this stuff is for like money because like if you watch his streams like Christians will send him like an insane amount of money and like he just kind of argues like he doesn't actually believe in God but he just uses it for like money. That's what I think.
No, that
I don't
would
know
make
why,
sense. I
but
mean, that would make a lot of sense. But like,
because the crazy thing is like he
Look at
actually
Dean for example. Dean's an atheist and he's getting a lot of money.
exactly right, but I think also it's also the case that like he also has like a lot of like or at least like a decent I would say or a base level understanding of like philosophy, like when it comes to like epistemology and stuff like that. Like he actually can kind of formulate like some philosophical jargon. But like I
Mm.
would say that like I don't know because I don't know if you've seen him, but like he has like an alter ego, I guess, where he like would
Yeah.
go on where he would go on and like be pretend to be an atheist and actually give like valid arguments. And that's why I really think that he's lying. Like I don't know why. I just have that
Wait, he
feeling.
has an
But
alter ego? Wait, what?
Wait, you didn't know about it? Yeah, so like I think I don't know if this was like a year or two ago, but essentially like he went on like this alt account where I think it was like Q-tip or like something like the opposite of what his name was, and he was going up to like Christian lives and like theist lives and arguing for atheism. And he was doing it pretty well. Like I mean, I don't know if he was trolling or what, but like for someone who's like, thinks that God is a necessary precondition for pretty much everything, like he was getting pretty good arguments. But then, like, obviously, like he went back to his like Christian stuff. But that did happen. That did happen. And if you look it up, I think it's probably somewhere on TikTok still. But I think
Bro,
because of that, I don't know. I
what?
think he's, yeah. I think he was. I think he's like at least maybe like maybe not an atheist per se, but like maybe an agnostic. I don't know. I don't know. I just have a feeling. Like, my spidey sense is going
Dude,
off.
that's fucking insane, bro. Wow.
Yeah. So,
Jeez. That's
but
actually
yeah, I
funny,
think.
though. That'd be funny, bro. That's
It
funny.
would
I need
be,
to look
and
that up.
honestly, I wouldn't even be mad because, like, get it how you get it, bro. Like, if that's your hustle, do it, I
Yeah,
guess.
bro. I
But
mean, like,
like,
yeah, if you're behind the rent and shit, bro. I don't
like,
know, bro.
yeah, bro, whatever you got to do, bro. I understand, I understand, bro. But yeah, I think I haven't really ran into like people that run tag. Like, I think it's been like a while because I think no. The last time I had like a real like philosophical discussion, it was like have you heard of like Islamic Apex? Have you heard of that guy?
No, I don't even dibble or dabble in Islam at all. Like literally at
Oh,
all.
yeah, so like it's like this Muslim guy, and like he came up and he was giving the modal ontological argument for God's existence. I mean, you've heard of that, right?
Modal ontological argument. Kill me, please.
Yeah. That was the last time I had like a real like Phil bro type discussion.
Dude,
'Cause otherwise I just get kind of like
I need to read
random
more
stuff.
into the reflexivity axiom. I need to read more into like S5 in general because genuinely, dude, once I learn how like to argue like the argument that I run, which is the reflexivity axiom is false, dude, all the
Mhm.
S5 motherfuckers are cooked. I swear.
Wait, do you hold to the S5 axiom or do you reject it?
I reject it.
Okay.
I reject the reflexivity axiom.
Mm. So what? So like,
Yeah.
what's your reasoning for rejecting it? Like, what's like is it the
Well, the
reflexivity that you're talking
argument,
about?
yeah, the argument is just that the reflexivity axiom states that all worlds access themselves. Basically, the argument goes as well. If it's true that all worlds access themselves, then it'd be true that the malaria vaccine can be cured in the future, right?
Wait, could
But
you
the
fix your mic
malaria
real
vaccine.
quick? It's like
Oh yeah, from what I remember, the reflexivity argument, I can pull it back up if I want to find it, but right now, pretty sure this is to say, the reflexivity axiom just says that all worlds access themselves, and then if that's true, then I think the argument's that well, the malaria vaccine or something, would been created in the future, right? But it's already been created, like the vaccine's already been created, so it's not true that in the future the malaria vaccine would have been created. So, you know, then if all that's true, then it's not true that the worlds access themselves.
mm, interesting. Is this
I
from
think I'll
like a
grab the
paper
argument.
or yeah? Is this
Like
from like a paper or is this like a thing you have on your own?
this is like my girlfriend's argument.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, dang. Okay.
she's like smarter than me like by a fucking ton, dude. I use her arguments like most of the time.
Is she in
She's like
school
so
for
much.
philosophy or is she just doing it in her free
Well,
time?
no, she's not in school for philosophy. She just studies on her own, unironically.
Oh,
She's self taught basically.
that's kind of insane. Because most people, when it comes to philosophy,
Mm,
they need like a degree or like some type of like teaching. But if you're like self-taught, like that's kind of crazy. Like
dude,
teaching yourself all of the stuff. Okay.
she's like tier two, bro. Like high tier two.
That's crazy. Does she want to do anything with philosophy, or is it just like a hobby?
She's gonna start doing some stuff recently. She's
Oh,
been
okay.
getting into stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, hold on. My buddy's live real quick. I'm gonna go check see what he's doing real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.